everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my take on the first 4 episodes of the much anticipated, long-awaited 5th season of Stranger Things, the last season of the show. Because it's been a couple days since the first episodes came out, this will be a spoiler review. Although quickly, if you want my general sentiments, I'll say that I thought that this was an okay start to the season, with a bit of a rough start in the first couple episodes, and that I missed a lot of the character-driven moments that we saw in some of the earlier seasons. It is still early, but I'm a little worried that the Duffer Brothers may have tasked themselves with wrapping up too much. However, there are still glimmers of what I loved about earlier seasons of the show in this season so far, and I'm going to get into all of that in detail right now. So this is where the spoilers begin. And let me say first off that I don't envy any creator who has to write a satisfying finale to a big fan hit show like this. It's impossible to please everyone, and I think that the main thing that you have to do is to stay true to the spirit of the show and to the characters that you've created. And so far, and there's a ways to go, I have to give the Duffer Brothers kind of a mixed grade on that. Every season of Stranger Things has gotten bigger than the last one. More characters, more lore on the upside down, bigger villains. And when you have an ongoing show, it makes sense because each season wants to feel bigger than the season before. But I do think that the Duffers may have overextended their world a bit because now they have to wrap all of that stuff up in one season. And I think I can see the seams showing just a little bit. For example, in every episode, there is at least one scene, and sometimes multiple scenes, of a group of our characters sitting in a room, discovering a problem, then having one of the characters spontaneously come up with the solution to that problem, then explaining that solution to everybody else, laying out their plan of what the action needs to be.
And as the convoy reaches this shell station here,
we ready to hop to disembark?
which will drop the old man at the border of G1. We're gonna need to recruit someone that the family trusts. Someone that can gain access to the house. I mean, we have to dig up into the barracks, unnoticed, grab the kids, get them to Murray, smuggle them out of Hawkins.
All before anyone notices they're gone.
Maybe if we can pinpoint his exact targets, we could get them out of Hawkins.
And out of Vecna's reach.
Did you forget we're quarantined?
That's not all!
A lot of this is pure exposition, and a lot of shows have to do it. Most shows have to do it, but usually there's only 1 or 2 scenes like this. Here, because you have the real world and the upside down and multiple groups of characters and multiple crises to solve, these sort of sit down and explain the plan scenes happen a lot, and it wore down on me through these first 4 episodes. Now, it may all be that this had to be done in the first act, and the next 2 batches of episodes will be more character-focused, but I did feel that there was a struggle to write these scenes in a believable way, and they were a necessity that had to be dealt with rather than something organically driven by the story. And what I think was sacrificed so far was a lot of the character work. The exposition replaced the dynamics between characters in a lot of scenes, and I missed those dynamics. Now, there were still some really good character scenes. You had Hopper and Eleven's heart-to-heart in the Upside Down. I liked Murray's scene when the gang was frustrated that he couldn't get all the items they asked for.
Count your blessings, hang some mistletoe, pucker up, and kiss my jolly ass!
Mike giving Holly her own D&D figure for protection was a good scene. Dustin drilling through Steve's BMW to attach his antenna. Robin's discussion with Will after she kind of picked up that he was in love with Mike. That led directly to his breakthrough at the end of episode 4. That was all good. The sci-fi stuff and the monsters, of course, have always been a big part of the show, but it's the characters that I think have made it so popular. The reason that Max's running up that hill moment was so big in season 4 was that it was steeped in so much emotion that the character had been building up across seasons and that had been building up over that 4th season. That's all there in season 5, but I think it's getting buried underneath the business of the plot, and I hope that the remaining 4 episodes give those characters more room to breathe.
I don't want to lose you. I won't.
Speaking of Max, we did find out what happened to her, sort of, at the end of season 4. After luring Holly into the woods, which admittedly sounds kind of bad, she revealed that she's been trapped inside Vecna's mind prison for months. And this is a great example of where I wish the show could have slowed down a bit more, because I liked her story, the way that she had to piece her way through Vecna's memories, ending up in the Rainbow Room repeatedly, going in circles, finding an exit only for it to disappear when the music in the real world stops, Vecna finding her going to that cave. I think that could have been a really great standalone episode, maybe in parallel with Lucas and the other folks at her bedside, culminating in her almost being caught and deciding to give in to imprisonment, maybe ending with her seeing Holly arrive. But it all happens in one flashback sequence. The structure of the season didn't really allow it room to breathe. And for such a big plot point, I think it could have been really memorable on its own instead of an exposition chunk, which was told to us after the fact. Max obviously has a big role to play, so there's more to hear from her. And with her broaching the topic of being in the past, plus all the Wrinkle in Time talk in Erica's class discussing wormholes and physics, I'm guessing that there's going to be some sort of time travel later down the line. Plus, I also want to know what it is that's in Max's cave that scares Vecna so much. We did learn more about Vecna's master plan, which is sort of getting the retcon treatment of, oh yeah, this was the plan all along. In that 4th episode, Vecna reveals that Will was just the first of many children he planned to kidnap and use to reshape the world because children are weak and easily broken and remolded. His words, not mine. Holly Wheeler is the newest victim that we already know, and I have to apologize for talking so much about how fast the teenagers on this show have aged, because Holly has them all beat. I mean, she's gone from 4-year-old to tween in just 4 screen years. I mean, I know that they, I guess, are saying she's around 10, but I'm not buying it. There's obviously something in the water in Hawkins that's aging these kids quickly.
How did you know?
A hunch.
On one hand, Vecna's plan being coming after the kids of Hawkins does provide some connective tissue between season 1 and the final season. On the other hand, I'm not quite sure how well it really fits with what we've gotten from the show so far, but I'm going to hold judgment on that until the season's over. After Jamie Campbell Bower got to do some work without makeup as Mr. Whatsit, he put on the full makeup as Vecna himself made an appearance in the finale. He's basically Magneto now, and he appears to have 2 serious rivals now that Will has unlocked his true potential and has 11 powers of his own. And hallelujah, it looks like Will finally has something to do. The first 4 episodes of this season were more goosebumps and screaming, but now he seems to finally be a critical player in the end game. I'm not going to lie, because they directly approached his love for Mike right before the end of the episode, and when the flashbacks kicked in as the Demogorgon was lunging at Mike, I thought they were setting Will up to sacrifice himself out of love for his best friend. That or Vecna was going to kill him because he was now a liability and no longer a weak child to be molded. But now he's more powerful than ever, and if he survives, I imagine that Robin is going to become a multimillionaire by becoming a 90s self-help guru, because she's got the skills. One chat and Will went from being a scared teen with a crush on his best friend to a superhero. That is pretty good.
I was looking for answers in somebody else, but I had all the answers.
11 is also pretty much a superhero at this point. She runs fast and jumps high and moves everything with her mind. She needs to eat to recharge her battery like the Flash. She even has a weakness with that sonic noise thing that she and Hopper call her kryptonite. But I don't think that the season's given her much to do so far beyond that. These first scripts haven't done her or Millie Bobby Brown, honestly, too many favors. It does feel a bit like this is becoming an X-Men show with everybody using their superpowers instead of their brains. And, you know, I'm not sure if that's going to be as interesting going forward. We'll see. 11 and Hopper spent most of these first episodes in the Upside Down, having their usual argument over 11 wanting to use her powers and Hopper being overprotective. I like 11 and Hopper, and I like that they're together again, but they have been having the same argument for 4/10 years.
You've been acting on impulse, on emotion, everything I taught you not to do.
Another big twist was that Dr. Sarah Connor wasn't holding Vecna prisoner in the Upside Down lab. She was holding Callie/8, 11's long-lost sister, from what is, I think mathematically, the least popular episode of Stranger Things ever back in season 2. And I think this is the Duffers taking a big swing, because if Callie's return works, they've retroactively corrected maybe their biggest perceived misstep in the series, which was 11's 1-episode side quest to Chicago. If it doesn't work, they've doubled down on what many fans consider the worst episode they've ever made. I'm skeptical, especially because the show is already struggling to juggle the characters they have. If Callie's return comes to nothing, this would be a pretty big unforced error. Also, they faked us out with both Will and Hopper having flashbacks to their past/loved ones, making us think that they were going to die and then not killing them. They've used up their flashback pass for now, unless they kill somebody for real next time, because my heartstrings can only be tugged in vain so much. So I had a couple of other miscellaneous notes on the season so far. Along with Max, I think these first few episodes could have benefited a little bit more from focusing on Dustin. I like that he is a little darker, a little more sullen after Eddie's death in the last season. It makes sense. It keeps Eddie's memory alive, but we've only seen a bit of that. He got beat up and then just kind of disappeared for a while. I don't like seeing him and Steve feuding so much just because they were a great bromance, but I have hope that they're going to make up as the season goes along. Lucas is kind of getting the Will treatment so far in that he hasn't had much to do other than to be there when everybody else is doing their stuff. He was a pretty key part of the Home Alone sequence with the Demogorgon, which I have to admit I found somewhat comical, whether that was by intention or not. It takes a lot for me to kind of feel bad for a Demogorgon, but that thing was just getting wrecked over and over again. And I guess I have to give him credit because this season takes place, 3 years before Home Alone would even come out? So really, the Stranger Things crew were the first Kevin McAllisters. There has been a lot of focus on the Wheelers so far, and strangely, I think the least amount of focus this season has been on Mike, who used to be the most prominent Wheeler. Nancy is caught in a love triangle between Steve and Jonathan, who are competing for her, even though she's still with Jonathan. So we have two main characters competing for another main character, and one of them, Jonathan, is planning to propose. I know the Duffer Brothers have been very loath to kill off their main characters so far, but I think the odds of both Steve and Jonathan making out of this season alive are pretty low. However, I think I said that last season too, so that goes to show what I know. Holly is now teamed up with Max as Vecna's prisoner. She went from barely there to main character pretty quick. And Mike's parents are both hospitalized after a Demogorgon attack. And as has become custom, poor Mr. Wheeler has just been completely forgotten about while everybody rallies around Holly and Mike's mom. I mean, the guy can't catch a break. He tries to save his family from a monster. He goes into the hospital with life-threatening injuries, and still nobody cares about him. The major new characters so far this season, because the show, of course, needs more of those, are Derek and Dr. K. Derek is a bit of a precocious little jerk. He feels a little bit like Cousin Oliver on the Brady Bunch, who was a little kid that they brought in once the Brady kids got too old to be the cute kids on the show. He's fine. I loved the idea of bringing Linda Hamilton into the show. The casting made so much sense in the vein of Matthew Modine, Paul Reiser, Sean Astin, stars of popular 80s movies and shows that would go on to play a big part in Stranger Things. There's not a whole lot for her to be so far beyond menacing military doctor, but I'm hoping for her role to get more interesting as the season progresses. So as you can probably tell, a lot of my feelings about this season so far fall into the wait and see category. There are character things and plot things that and I've used this word a lot, skeptical about. But I do think that the season has improved as it's gone on. It got more momentum. It felt more like the show that I've been a fan of since 2016 as these first episodes went along. There are two things, though, that I can say I definitively wasn't a huge fan of about these first 4 episodes. The first one is the look of the show. This is recurring across a bunch of streaming shows over the last 10 years. As technology like the volume has become more popular and as more and more shows decide to do a lot of their backgrounds digitally, I think that shows have progressively looked worse. And a great example of that is the Upside Down in the opening flashback, which I thought looked like a cartoon. Wasn't nearly as atmospheric as it looked back in season 1, which this was flashing back to. And then you pair that with what I think were some very uncanny valley de-aging effects. When I saw that first scene, I didn't think, oh, cool, we're all the way back in season 1. I thought, yikes, that looks way worse than season 1. And that extends to all the stuff in the Upside Down, and even scenes like Steve and Jonathan on top of the radio tower, or Henry and Holly just standing in front of a house. To me, it was fairly obviously shot on green screen, which can look good given the proper resources. But even though this season reportedly had a massive budget, the scale also went up massively. And when you translate that to visual effects, I think that just means that you get more cheap-looking visual effects rather than applying more resources to make a smaller scale look better. I'm just not a fan of the streaming aesthetic in general that we see in a lot of movies and TV shows now. And I think that this season looks the most like a streaming show, quote unquote, out of any of the other seasons. I also, and I'm sad to say this, haven't been impressed with a lot of the acting so far. And I think that a lot of it is the writing. Some of it may just be the actors themselves. There are so many long exposition scenes that I think aren't written very believably that it makes it hard to deliver them believably. But beyond that, and I don't want to single them out, but I don't think that Millie Bobby Brown and Noah Schnapp have been at their best so far, nor has the writing for their characters. Will and 11 both seem to have some heavier duty stuff coming. 11 reuniting with 8 in the Upside Down, Will now having powers, so maybe that'll change. But there's always been, when you look back across this show, in general, 2 or 3 outstanding performances in every season. David Harbour and Winona Ryder in season 1, Sean Astin and Dacre Montgomery in season 2, Paul Reiser and Maya Hawke in season 3, Sadie Sink, Joseph Quinn, and Jamie Campbell Bower in season 4, and then I think really the main cast of young actors throughout. I haven't really seen any of that so far from anybody, and that's disappointing, but we're not at the end yet. So yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, for me, this was not the strongest start to the season thus far, but I do see a lot of interesting opportunities and signs that it could be getting better. Once the whole season is out, I may look back on these first episodes and say that these were just some early bumps in the road, or maybe they're troubling signs of what's to come. It's always preferable if a show can really just nail the final season all around, but I think the ending of the story ultimately is going to be what people decide on. So we're going to get our next batch of episodes on Christmas Day. I will likely have my review up a couple days after that because, like these, I'm going to be balancing watching and reviewing the show with spending time with family and friends for the holiday. But regardless, we'll see what the Upside Down has in store for us on Christmas and then again on New Year's Eve. Thanks so much for watching my take so far on these first 4 episodes. If you want to see more, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, hit that bell so you know when I upload a new video. I've got a busy week coming up. I still have a review of Hamnet, which is a big awards season hopeful, which will probably hit tomorrow. And then next week, I've got reviews of Marty Supreme. I'll probably check out Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I'm also going to have charts with Dan recapping the Thanksgiving weekend and whatever else might pop up. So it is a busy holiday season here on the channel. Thank you so much for coming to hear my thoughts on Stranger Things. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.